Hello, and welcome to another vlog. I recently interviewed my good friend and fellow disability advocate, Vicky Levack, about the accessible housing crisis here in Nova Scotia. We talked about housing, the pandemic, and our personal lives. It was very informative, and I really learned a lot, and I'd like to share it with you. So without further ado, here is my interview with Vicky. I hope you enjoy.
Hi guys, my name is Victoria Levack. I'm 29 years old. I live in Halifax, Nova Scotia. And I currently live in a long-term care facility here in this city.
And Vicky, what is it that you do for a living?
I am a disability rights advocate, a sex educator, and basically a lot of unpaid volunteer work in the disability rights sector.
And which issue are you currently fighting for the most, would you say?
Housing, definitely housing. Um, right now, where I live, I'm not there by choice, and they gave me two options. Live with my folks for the rest of my life. Well, obviously, they're going to die first. So I needed somewhere to go anyway. And I wanted them to be around to help me through any, rough patches while I try to adjust to life here. Or I could live in this long-term care facility. I wanted to live in this small options home, but my care needs were too extensive, apparently.
Okay. I know you've talked a lot about that to me, about like why you're in long-term housing, and I know it was not really by choice, and I don't think that's really unique for a lot of young people with disabilities. I was basically in the
Unfortunately.
same boat. I just chose the opposite. So what's it like living in a senior's home at your age?
Well, technically, this is a young adult wing that I live on now, so it's a little different.
Okay.
That being said, young adult to the Nova Scotia government means anyone ages 18 to 64. So, we have quite a range of ages on this board, and excuse me, a lot of people have cognitive delays of some kind. So it's very hard to have a conversation with them the way you and I are having one right now. So I pretty much keep to myself. I mean, I'm friendly with the staff, but not so much with the other residents. So that can be difficult.
Yeah, that would be difficult. So does that how does that affect you, like, emotionally, not being able to connect with some of those residents?
Well, for me, it's fine. I just feel bad for them because a lot of them, like I said, they have cognitive delays. So, and there isn't a lot for them to do here. We've got one or two activities a day, and the rest of the time they just, sit in front of the TV. It's very sad. I get very sad.
Yeah, that would be sad. Um, Now, the pandemic, obviously that's changed the way they do things at some of the long-term care facilities. How has that affected your daily life?
Well, before, and I actually got this changed, before we needed to be monitored to go outside, even those of us who understood social distancing rules. I am so sorry. And I said, that's not right. So I actually got that changed by giving a call to the CBC. We then called my house. And then was like, can you give us an answer, please? And they're like, oh no, she's absolutely right. Of course, she can go outside on her own. And then I was like, but I don't want it for just me. So now they finally listened, and now anybody who can understand the rules the pandemic rules is going to go in the backyard on their own. We're still not allowed to go outside the facility.
So, I know before the pandemic you did a lot of advocacy out in the community. How has your advocacy work changed since the pandemic started?
It's weird because I feel like I'm doing less, but at the same time I'm also doing more interviews for newspapers and books and things. I actually got offered to be interviewed for a book about the pandemic, and how it's affecting my life. I'll be one of several stories. That was through Nimbus Publishing. So I, of course, agreed to do that, and I'm just waiting to hear back from them. I've also done interviews with a woman journalist in Toronto talking about my life during the pandemic. So I am doing a lot to sort of make people aware of what's going on, but I feel like I'm doing less because I'm so sorry. Because it feels like I'm not as active. Like there's not a lot of work on my part. It's just calling me and talking like you and I are doing right now. So
yeah, but I know you do a lot of. Oh, sorry.
So as much as I'm physically doing less, I feel like mentally I'm doing more.
So that's kind of interesting how, you're not getting out and about as much, but you're still doing advocacy maybe more. But for someone like you, who I know does a lot of public speaking, I'm sure that's, just comes natural to you to do those interviews and stuff.
It does, but it gets very awkward for me because they want to paint me as some sort of, sometimes, not always, but they want to paint me as some sort of victim. And I don't like that. I don't want to be portrayed like that. I'm not a victim. So I have to be very careful about if they start going down that oh poor you road. I have to cut them off right away and be like, if that's the way we're going to do this, I don't want to be involved.
Yeah, and I get that. I don't like it when people treat me like a victim and then patronize me, so I can definitely relate to that.
Obviously where I live isn't great, but it's not awful. If it was, my dad would not have agreed to let me live here. This was my choice, but if things were really bad, I know I could go home at any point. So the fact that I'm not asking to go home should tell you something, that maybe it's not so bad and horrible like people like to think it is.
So if you were going to write the laws and you hypothetically were in charge of housing in Nova Scotia, what other housing options, specifically accessible housing options, would you want people to have access to?
Well, first off, I would separate cognitive disability, people with cognitive disabilities from people with physical disabilities, because we need different things for care. What they need is valid, but it's very different from what you and I would need. So I think in order to provide the best care, you really have to go, okay, what are we focusing on? And so we have to make that divide. Because if you try to, accommodate everyone in a certain space, somebody's going to get left out. What I would also do is give people several options. One, if you wanted to live in a group home or a group setting, you're allowed to do that. But also, if you're like me, you're like, man, I just want to live alone. I don't want to live with people. I have to be nice all the time. Because when you're around other people, you gotta be nice. And sometimes you feel a little cranky and you don't want to be nice. So I'd like to have that option to get away from people if I need to.
Well, I'm an introvert myself, so I like people in small doses. So what specifically is your plan going forward within like the next few months to try and spread awareness for housing?
Well, hopefully, with all these stories, people realize how difficult it actually is to do this job. Like how much our staff is underpaid and overworked. I mean, we've been saying that. I've been saying that for years, since I moved in here 8 years ago. I've been saying that. But nobody really understood until this pandemic hit. And then, you know, in Ontario, for example, they had to call in the military. That's got to tell you something about the state of these facilities. They're overworked, underpaid, and I think what we need to do, rather than do big housing like this, because again, trying to accommodate everyone actually accommodates no one. I just think the disabilities have to be separated in order to get the best care.
So
that seems like I'm asking for segregation, and I'm not.
yeah,
I want to make that very clear. I am not a segregationist. I just want everyone to get the best care possible.
yeah, I get it. It's like they have different care needs, so you shouldn't lump them in with people who need another kind of specialized care, because they're just not going to get as good quality care as they need. It's not about quantity, it's about quality. And I get that. But if there was a word that you'd use to describe the housing state in this province, what is there a specific word that comes to mind?
Inadequate, sad, desperate. We are in desperate need of more housing, not for just people with disabilities, but affordable housing in general in this city is sad. The state of it is just sad.
Can you talk a little bit about the petition that we're thinking about starting?
What petition was that? I see so many petitions.
So remember we talked about maybe starting a petition to the mayor and the premier about updating the housing laws to build more accessible housing?
Yes. What I would like to see with that is, what I would actually love to see is for the Minister of Health and or the Premier to actually live here for 24 hours so that they can see how inadequate it is for people's needs. And I mean everything. So if you have to go to the bathroom, you have to wait. Sorry. If you want to go to bed, you have to wait. Sorry. You want to change your shirt, you gotta wait. Sorry.
So if you were going to choose someone to send a petition to right now, who would it go to, and what would the petition be for, just right off the top of your head?
Well, I would send it to Big Neil first, because I always go to the top, go to the big kahuna, and then he can send it to whoever it needs to be sent to. Like right now, nursing homes fall under Department of Health, and I don't need specialized healthcare. That's one thing. They think we need specialized healthcare. I know for someone like me, I don't. So I would like to go more into the social services route, which is what I was in before I moved here. And I had a much better quality of life. The only reason I moved here, well, there were a couple reasons. One, I wanted to live in the city, but two, I had VLN care and they weren't always reliable. So if they didn't show up, luckily I lived with my mother, so she was able to help me. But if they didn't show up, I would have been screwed. So I wanted to be somewhere where I knew my care needs would always be met.
Can you talk about why accessible housing is important to you specifically, and why people should care about accessible housing? including especially people outside of the disabled community?
Well, I'm gonna lay some truth on you. Depending on how long you live, we're all gonna be disabled eventually. At some point, you will have some sort of disability, whether it's been acquired from age, or an accident, or birth, or you're gonna get disabled in some way. So wouldn't you want to live in a house where you could live in it till the end of your life and not have to go into somewhere like a long-term care facility simply because you can't walk upstairs? Because that happens.
That's a good point.
That's not okay. We have people who are perfectly, able to live on their own, but they need the care I need, the physical stuff, so they have to live here. If they were given those supports and that technology to make their houses accessible, they wouldn't need to live here. And for some things, that's as easy as lowering the switches and the taps, or even building a tiny ramp instead knocking out the stairs.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's kind of like what my last documentary, what we found is that a lot of the accessibility renovations or adaptations are really easy to do and don't actually cost that much.
Yeah, they're very small things you can do. And also you have to think of like families, right? Like I wasn't able to see my grandmother for years because her house was not accessible. So for years and years, when she moved in with my uncle, I couldn't go visit her, and that was very sad to me. And all because there were some bloody steps.
Yeah. It always sucks when you can't visit family because of that.
Yeah. I have a 3-year-old niece now that their house is kind of accessible, but my friend has to kind of shove me through the door with brute strength to get over this little lip, and try to do that and keep track of a toddler, and it's difficult, and because the lift is kind of high, every time I go over it, I sort of freak out a little bit. I'm like, oh God, am I gonna tip? Oh God. I've never actually have. I want to make that very clear, but it can get kind of dicey.
Definitely, I've been there. There's a lot of steep hills in Bridgewater. So I guess the last thing I'll get you to say is just talk about, I don't want this to sound like, it's kind of cheesy, but just kind of say something that indicates like how determined you are to make accessible housing happen.
Well, I pretty much dedicated my life to it, so I'm pretty dedicated at this point. I think I'm known for that stance. I've developed a sort of not persona, because it is who I actually am, but I've developed a media presence so that people are more aware of this issue, and at least they know that if they have questions, they can come to me for answers, or I will tell them where to go to get answers, and I think that's very important. I'm not willing to get up until living here is a choice and not a mandatory thing.
So you're in it for the long haul, in a word, I'd say.
I'd like to do it, in the next 20 years, so I can move on to something else in my life. But
well, fingers crossed it won't take 20 years, but
I don't know, man. Government's very slow, so I've been with myself decades.
It could take 20 years, so.
I don't know, man. Government's very slow, so I've been with myself decades.
It'll probably take 20 years, but hopefully it doesn't.
Yeah, hopefully not, but let's be honest, it probably will.
Yeah, so I think we covered everything. There's some really quotable quotes in there that you said, like some of the things that you said really stood out. So those will be really good,
Good.
especially for like the marketing and stuff.
Yeah, marketing.
Yeah. So I'm going to stop recording now. I hope you enjoyed my interview with Vicky. I certainly did. I enjoyed hearing her perspective on the accessible housing crisis. Was there anything that she said that surprised you? Please let me know in the comments. If you liked today's vlog and you'd like to see more videos like this one, then be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And if you'd like to help me make more videos like this one, then please support me on Patreon. Thanks for watching, and see you next month.